I hope everybody can see and hear me clearly. In today's session, we will take up an article from the Hindu. It's an editorial article from the Hindu. We take it up every day. But today, let me just point out that the article which I've chosen is full of technical terminology. But do not worry, you will get to know that, like in all exams, the technical jargon that is used will be explained in the passage itself. First thing. And number two, the technical jargon will not come in the way of your understanding. Right, understanding that is required to answer the questions, not understanding as an expert. Right, so two things that I would like you to be acquainted with. Many people are afraid of technical jargon in the passages. Do not have to be, because as I was telling you, it's a passage, right? And in the passages they will try to be as neutral as possible, and the jargon, if any, if it is used, it will be all explained within the context, right? And if it is explained within the context, things should be easy. And number two, the jargon will not cause any impediments when it comes to understanding of the passage. The second thing which I'm telling you is something that follows from the first point, right? Since it is going to be explained within the context, there should be no problems, right? So that is what we will try to take up today. Okay, right? And before that, let me quickly tell you, this is from the Hindu today, right? Today's editorial article from the Hindu, right? So start reading it. Let's see. This is the first paragraph. 30 seconds you will have to read, and then I will start discussing it. And if you notice, right, as I was telling you, this is what the author uses. For example, TPP बाद में बहुत use होगा. It is nothing else but installed coal-fired thermal power plants. It's what it means, right? And this GW is nothing else but gigawatt. It's a unit of power. That is something which is not explained, but at least the context is what is important here, right? Now, so what do you see in the first paragraph? In the first paragraph, we see the twin challenges. What are the twin challenges? The first challenge is meeting energy requirements. And what is the other challenge? The other challenge is basically is to contribute to global efforts to mitigate climate change. Matlab, climate change, it should not harm the environment. We should not, we should reduce climate change or the impacts of, human human problems and climate change, at the same time meet energy requirements. This is a twin challenge, right? Now, and the author begins on a positive note also. What is the positive note? Because of the Electricity Act of 2003, the installed power plant that they installed, coal-fired TPP generation more than doubled. So the coal-fired thermal power plants, it doubled from 94 to 192 gigawatts between March 11 and 2017. Right. So this has actually contributed towards meeting the problem. Right. So what has happened? This sharp increase, it has enabled the government to increase, you know, per capita consumption per head, right, by 35-37% by reducing peak demand deficit. So peak demand deficit was 9.8% in 2010. Now it is 1.6 in 2016-17, right? So he's telling you the positives also. The last sentence of this paragraph tells you that he is going to speak about the problems also, right? So yes, per capita consumption has increased, right? The installed capacity, power generation capacity of thermal power plants has more than doubled, right, within that particular year, right? Peak demand deficit has also decreased, right? But then there are problems, right? So there are problems. India has a long way to go, so there are many problems before, in this particular sector, right? So uh, Why? Because the per capita consumption is still only a third of the global average. This is the big issue, right? So per capita consumption is increased by 37% comparing to our own standards. But even after the increase, it is only one third of the global average. So that means we have to do a lot. There's a lot to be done. Everybody is clear? So straight away, we understand the author starts on a positive note, but is looking at the challenges that lie ahead. Okay, what is the challenge going to be about? Power generation, powers, problems in power, right? Everybody is clear with this, I hope. Right. Shall we look at the next slide? Yes, I'll change the, go to the next slide. This is the next slide. We'll give you 30 seconds, read carefully, and then we can move on with the, I'll do the analysis also. I'll give you the interpretation of the passage also. Right, everybody is reading it, I hope. The author presents statistics, right? Be very careful, I will read it along with you, right? So in the first sentence here, he's telling you about why do we use coal, what is the importance of coal in this thermal power plants, right? This sentence, I would like you to be very careful, right? This sentence, the thermal power plants, they contribute 71% of the total electricity produced in India, right? Even though they account for only 55% of the installed capacity. Matlab, there are other sources also, right? When you combine all the sources, which in terms of the capacity that they can produce, thermal power plants only contribute 55% in the capacity, installed capacity. But then when it comes to the actual contribution to the actual energy produced, it is 71%, which means India depends to a great extent, right, on thermal power plants, right? Now let's see. So coal plays a vital role, right, which is to ensure, it plays a vital role in India's efforts to achieve sustainable development goal, right, which is to ensure access to affordable, reliable, and modern energy for all, right? Now, then he brings up this concept of, variable energy. What is variable energy? Variable, VRE is variable renewable energy, right? Primarily wind and solar. Notice he does not mention he does not mention hydroelectricity, right? For what reason we do not know, right? So installed capacity, if you notice, 55% is to be produced by thermal power plants, 24.7 is by variable renewable energy, right? Which basically means, another around, around 20% would come from other sources also, installed capacity. And if you notice, when it comes to VRE, the capacity of contribution is 24, nearly 25, but actual contribution is 10%, right? So if you notice, this is one, equation which everybody should be able to remember as we read the passage, right? Now, however, last line देखो, ramp up means increase. So there has been an increase of the VRE capacity without commensurate growth in electricity demand resulted in. So point is, India depends on DPPs, but there has been a ramp up of VRE generation, right? Without demand, it has resulted in fixed cost, right, which is passed on through the final consumer. So this leads to increased costs. Okay, everybody understands? I think everybody is clear up to here. All clear? So what is happening briefly is that India is primarily dependent on DPPs, right? There have been efforts to increase the VRE generation of power, but then without demand, it only adds to the cost. Okay, so essentially, it is this paragraph highlights the dependence of India on thermal power plants. Everybody is ready, I hope. This is the next slide. VRE is variable renewable resources, right? Variable renewable energy sources, right? By like primarily wind and solar, right? This is the next slide. Read it for 30 seconds and then we will discuss. In this paragraph, he is going to explain what is the cost, right? What are the problems? What are the economical, issues that come along with VRE sources? Everybody is reading it, I hope. Nobody is asking any questions. I hope all of you can understand and read. All of you are able to make sense, right? So, VRE sources has been aided, helped by policy measures. That means, policy, the policy making in the country, it tries to encourage it as well as financial incentives, right? So there is a lot of money that is spent and the cost is borne by the consumer, right? So if you notice, the current level of VRE in the national power grid is increasing the cost of power procurement for discoms. How does it happen? What is telling you is that if you try to integrate VRE in the national power grid, right, it leads to cost of get the cost of procuring power, matlab the cost of getting power for the discoms is increased. How is it increasing? Let's see. He's explaining it here. Right. The total additional burden of grid integration of VRE. Grid integration, देखो, there is a power grid, so you will have to, of course, VRE is new, it is not something which is old. So there will be a certain requirement to integrate the new system into the grid, right? So added to this is balancing cost. What is balancing cost? I'll explain. It is not explained in the context, so I'll tell you. Balancing cost is something which comes along with renewable resources like wind and other sources, right? Especially wind में balancing इसलिए करना होता है because the flow, the wind, the speed and the velocity of the wind and direction is not constant, right? So it will have to be the power that is produced will have to be balanced. So there's a balancing cost that comes with it. Right. Stranded capacity cost is because of change in laws and regulations. There are some things, some assets which are installed, right? They may or may not be utilized. So that is called stranded capacity cost. In short, VRE comes along with the cost of around 2.13 per unit when it comes to getting power for the discoms. Okay. Nobody is responding. I hope everybody is able to understand. I hope everybody is able to understand, right? So the idea is that VRE sources अभी के लिए शायद it is not they are too costly, right? So they come with a lot of cost. Probably eventually आगे का the author does not say anything, but as of now, integration of VRE sources it costs a lot, right? So therefore, India must implement a plan to increase this, right? Increase the energy efficiency at the same time reduce emissions, right? So that is the priority. So now if you notice what the author is going towards is he's telling you thermal power plants they have a big problem, but the alternative that is VRE is also it is something which is not as cost effective. It has problems, right? Especially it is costly. So that is why there is a need for another alternative. What is the other alternative is what the author is trying to discuss. Everybody is clear up to here? Okay, right. The next slide. So this is where the author gives his suggestion. What was his? So it's a very balanced argument. He begins by highlighting the two problems, right? Power generation is definitely required. You need to meet the power requirements. At the same time, you need to control emission and mitigate climate change, right? Now, thermal power plants are very good, but then the problem is they cause emissions. The solution, the other way out, VRE, as of now, it is getting very costly to integrate into the entire system. They come with a lot of hidden costs, right? So, what do you need to right? So you require you require something like a transition plan is what the author is telling you, right? So he is telling you it's a progressive retirement of 36 gigawatt of installed capacity, right? So we develop a transition. So the transition is retirement of installed, some of these thermal power based on key performance such as efficiency, specific consumption, technological. What is obsolescence? Obsolescence means, it is the word obsolescence is derived from the word obsolete. What is obsolete? Obsolete means something which is out of use, too old, right? पुराना हो चुका है जो, ठीक है, that is obsolescence. ठीक है, so his first plan is retirement of some TPPs, thermal power plants, right? Around 200 of them. He is telling you the exact number also. Okay, based on certain parameters. Now the question arises, right? If you're going to retire them, what is going to substitute them, right? What is going to substitute them? He gives you this. The resulting shortfall in base load electricity can be made up by increasing the utilization of high efficiency, low emission TPPs. Now use note this HELE TPP मतलब high emission, high efficiency, low emission. So thermal power plants में problem क्या था? The problem was emission, right? Now the solution that he proposes in the interim is high efficiency, low emission. Okay, right? That it is currently underutilized, right? And people are it is currently underutilized to accommodate VRE. See, VRE at present, right? It is costly. In the future, we do not know, but at present, it is costly to integrate, right? So the author is telling you that there's another solution that is high HELE TPPs instead of TPPs, right? So that is what we have to be looking at, right? Right. Now, then he's telling us to retire these TPPs, and what will make up for the shortfall? The shortfall will be made up by HELE TPPs, right? And second, and if you notice, uh, the TPPs have already, so commissioning of 47, there are currently, low emissions, right? They are, and then commissioning 47 government owned TPPs, advanced stage of construction, which have already been invested by government. So he is asking you to retire the ones which are old and put in, and what is in construction, right? You will have to, what is under construction, speed it up. At the same time, supplement it with high efficiency, low emission TPPs, right? And by the way, these TPPs have already signed power purchase agreements, so there are new ones which are constructed, so the new ones should be definitely commissioned. And by the way, he also gives you a ray of hope that the Nuclear Power Corporation is also constructing 11 nuclear power plants, right? So that will supplement, it will supply 24 into 7 power without any CO2 emissions. Right. देखो Samirpal, discoms are basically nothing else but the power suppliers. Right. So discoms are nothing else but the power suppliers. Right. The power suppliers, especially the private players who provide power. Right. Think about it like distribution company. Right. Power distribution company ऐसे सोच के देखो. ठीक है. So discom is like distribution company. Somebody who the company that distributes power. Right. जैसे in Delhi, it is distributed by private players, right? It's there in many countries, it's there in many places, right? So discoms are distributors of distributors of power. Okay, right? All clear, everybody? Right. So this is the transition plan. Transition plan kya hai? It's not as easy. He's saying first retire the old TPPs, right? And supplement it with new HELE TPPs. At the same time, there are some TPPs which are constructed, unko fast forward karo. ठीक है, they should be fast forwarded so that it does not, so and also nuclear power is nuclear, and the nuclear power corporation is also, you know making a lot of these make is also making some power plants. Now he's telling you the advantages. This is more of a factual, you know this is more of a factual, what they call, passage, more of a factual paragraph. I hope everybody will be able to understand this, right? So he is telling you, if you implement this transition plan, what will happen? The total capacity will increase, right? Even after the retiring of the two, of this, see, there are some 211, inefficient TPPs which need to be retired. So even if you retire them, right, they will be basically, they will get the capacity will increase, right? And at the same time is telling you an advantage, that is, right, they need major sustenance capital expenditures. मतलब क्या है? To keep them, इनको मेंटेन करने के लिए पैसे खर्च करना होता है, that is capital expenditures, right? So they need major sustenance capital expenditures for life extension. So they will, मतलब in short, maintenance में खर्चा, right? And what is the other thing? Modernization, retrofit of flue glass desulfurization plants. देखो, FCD, right? So FCD is what? Gas desulfurization. What is flue gas? Flue gas is nothing else but the gas that is produced by the thermal power plants, right? इनको desulfur करना होता है, because if you release it without removing the sulfur, and if you release it in the atmosphere, it will be very harmful. So there are desulfurization plants also. Flue gas is nothing else but flue gas is nothing else but what is emitted by these power plants. ठीक है? So if you notice, right, these are technical jargon है, लेकिन more or less context से समझ में आ सकता है. ठीक है? Okay. Abhilash, देखो, your opinions, I'll tell you, towards there is a certain mail that you can write, right? If there is a certain mail and there's also a phone number that will come towards the end, I will tell you that, right? If there's a phone number also, there's also a mail, right? Support at BYJU'S. I'll tell you that exact mail we will see. ठीक है? Right. Right. Everybody is clear? Everybody is clear about this, I think. Right. So he is telling you, right, what will, with the implementation of the transition plan, what is going to be this? What are the advantages? ठीक है? What are the advantages is what he is telling you. ठीक है? All clear, I hope. Now, again, the next paragraph. This is more of data, right? So let's just go through it. This paragraph is more or less technical. If you notice, India's, if you have read it, I'll give you another 30 seconds to read it so that you do not face any problems. Right? What is it telling you essentially? Is telling you, right, if you go by this transition plan, right, एक तो India's power generation from thermal power plants is going to be reduced from 71 to 57%. There will be other sources which will be used, right? And coupled with this, right, if you utilize this, high efficiency, low emission thermal power plants, right, they will replace the remaining old, if not 100%, they will to a certain extent contribute more in terms of the power generation. So that way, what will happen is the total emission will be definitely reduced. So he is working on this transition plan will help reduce emissions and meet the energy requirements to a great extent, right? So in any case, his transition plan is primarily, right, on retiring the old thermal power plants and replacing them with HELE TPPs, and also speeding up the ones which are already commissioned. Okay, right? Everybody understood this is all data. If you notice, right? So 71% to 51, 57% is going to be the reduction of the contribution of TPPs, right? At the same time, the remaining TPPs will also be, the remaining thermal power plants, the contribution to that will also be increased by HELE. So that means the overall emission is going to be definitely reduced. Okay, everybody got the point, I hope, right? This is the last slide. This is, if you notice first, इससे पहले के previous two slides, he was more or less giving you data. Now he is summarizing the data. Right. Let's look at the paragraph and see. Right. If you look at it, first let's read this paragraph first, right, and then we will take it up one by one. Let's see. Right. So this HELE, all of you know, they minimize emissions of particulate matter, right? SO2 and NO2, right? Sulfur dioxide and nitrous dioxide and nitrogen dioxide. So our transition plan offers operational, economic, and environmental benefits. It also includes avoidance of capex. What is capex? Capital expenditure. जो उसने पहले बताया था. Sustenance capex क्या होता है? Right. The money that you require to maintain them. And FCD cost क्या है? FCD is like what? Flue desulfurization plants, right? Flue gas desulfurization. Matlab, the gas which is coming out from the power plants, they also need to be desulfurized. Now, if you put HELE TPPs, right, it will reduce these costs, right? Right. So therefore, it will save a lot. So that is what is telling you, right? Yes, Aniket, this is from the Hindu. Today's the Hindu. You can see today's the Hindu, right? It is the an article, right? And if you, it is written by people, professors, two professors from the power sector. I mean, from a certain university. Right. Let's see. So everybody is clear. He's telling you about the advantages. What will He is telling you it will uh, the HELE TPPs will reduce particulate matter. At the same time, it will avoid all this expenditure. Coal consumption will also be reduced. Water requirement will also be reduced. Right. So that is what is the case. What is the plan? So he's telling you finally. What does he say? Right. This plan, it prioritizes the installation of high efficiency electrostatic precipitators. What are they? They can remove the particulate matter from the gas emissions without extensive shutdowns or hiking tariffs, right? So he's telling you, instead of using imported and expensive, uh, fuel flue gas desulfurization, the plant, I mean the thermal power plant will emit gases, right? Usko, that can be that is treated by, it can be treated by electrostatic precipitators, which means it will remove 99.9% of the particulate matter, of the particulate matter, unlike the other one which is very costly, right? So this is, he is telling you what is how exactly how exactly are these high efficiency low emission plans going to work, right? The implementation of this plan will help India. It will help solve the problem, right? So this plan demonstrates India's commitment to climate change, right? So he's telling you as a solution. Okay. So what is going to happen essentially is that in this HELE TPPs, right, we will use a certain kind of a precipitator which will remove 99.977% of the particulate material, and this will be, this will be, this will also not come at a high cost, unlike imported versions of the same. Okay, so this is what the author suggests, right? There are some questions which I would like you to answer. This is the first question. Everybody, this is something which I have made from the passage only, right? Let's see. Which of the following is true, or which of the following is not true or cannot be inferred from the passage? So you have to find out what is not true or cannot be inferred from the passage. Everybody is encouraged to answer. Can you? Quickly tell me what is the answer. Which of the following is which is not true or cannot be inferred? These are details which are taken from different parts of the passage. I hope all of you remember, right? And what should be the answer? What is not true? The answer is it's not very difficult. This is more of retention power. I hope all of you will be able to remember, right? Eliminate करके देखो, right? One problem of TPPs is emission of particulate matter. Definitely है, problem है. तभी तो you are going to treat it with you require measures to decrease it, right? And they okay, healthy TPPs produce some particulate emission. Yes, 99.97% रिड्यूस होता है, राइट? बट देन रिड्यूस हो सकता है, बट देन कुछ तो हो रहा है. सो नो मशीन इन द वर्ल्ड इज 100%, you know. Okay, now nuclear power plants do not cause CO2 emissions. This is something which is also directly stated in the passage, right? The answer is A. VREs, are they more cost effective or are they less cost effective? देखो TPP इतना प्रॉब्लम है तो VRE, why does the author not suggest renewable energy sources as the solution? Because currently, right, इनको grid में integrate करना and it's getting costly. Second, power procurement, right, to the discoms are costly if you take it from VRE. Okay, so they are not more cost effective, they are less cost effective. So the word that is wrong here is more nahi, they should be less cost effective. ठीक है, न्यूक्लियर पावर प्लांट्स डू नॉट कॉज CO2 emissions, डायरेक्टली स्टेटेड है. वन ऑफ यू सीम्स टू बी अ लिटिल बिट, आई विल शो यू दी, इसका आंसर न्यूक्लियर पावर प्लांट्स का डायरेक्टली दिया हुआ है. यहाँ देखो, राइट, विदाउट दैट विल सप्लाई पावर विदाउट एनी CO2 emissions. ठीक है, ऑल क्लियर? आई होप दिस वाज द फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन, राइट. There are three questions like this. Next question देखो, which of the following is the most valid reason for the use of coal in DPPs? This was stated in one part of the passage. Why is coal used in DPPs? Right. Everybody, I'm waiting for your answers, right? So in the previous question, I think most of you got the answer. Everybody understood, I think, right? Now, next question, why, which is the most valid reason for the use of coal in DPPs? Of course, we are speaking about the passage, the context, right? So why do we use coal in DPPs? Do you want me to show you the relevant part? Relevant part, I will, okay. Relevant part I will show you when after giving the answers, right? Samir Pal says the answer is A. One of you think Pani is saying the answer is B. B or A? अच्छा, एक मिनट देखो. B. Coal is the most energy efficient fuel available. Be very careful. Many are saying A, right? Okay, एक मिनट. That means I'll have to show you the relevant part. Everybody is saying A. एक मिनट. Why do we use coal is given here. Coal is the only fuel that India has in abundance, and the geopolitics of India's neighborhood do not permit easy access to piped natural gas. Right? It is not just one. Look at the coal is the only fuel that India has in abundance. Right? Is it the only reason? And there is no. It means, देखो, coal is the only fuel that India has in abundance, meaning there are others, but they are not abundantly available, right? And which base, and if you look at the second reason, the geopolitics of India's neighborhood do not permit ready access to piped natural gas. Piped natural gas कहाँ होता है ज़्यादातर? It is found in the Middle East, so you cannot, of course, for that you'll have to pass through Afghanistan, you'll have to go through Pakistan, which is not going to happen, right? So what is the best reason? Best reason is this. Read very carefully. Is it only that coal is abundantly available, or inference करके coal is abundantly, is this enough? Abundant है इसलिए है क्या? It's the only one that is abundantly available. That means there are no other sources, which is very different from A. And also, you cannot have piped natural gas, which basically means it is because of C, because of the lack of other viable options. So the best answer is C. Understood? This is a kind of a question which is very tricky, right? If you do not read it carefully, many of you will end up marking A, but there's a slight difference between A and the option C and even what is given in the passage. Everybody understood this, I hope, right? So now the answer is C. Okay, morning, Kriti, good morning, but we are almost about to end, right? I hope you will be, I don't think you will be able to make a lot of sense because you'll not be able to make, you'll not be able to interpret a lot because we have already read the passage. Okay, everybody understood this, I hope, right? Because of government policy is not indicated. Now, coal is the most energy efficient fuel available. I mean, energy efficient is something which we do not know. Abundantly available fuel तो है सबसे ज़्यादा, बाकी abundant नहीं है, right? So and this basically makes C the answer, right? देखो समीर, options A and C must be together, नहीं देखो C जब लिखोगे ना तो A is also included in it. Coal is abundantly available, देखो तो what is the author saying? Coal is the only one that is available, मतलब और कोई option नहीं है, right? दूसरा, natural gas is also not available, which means lack of other options, which is different from A. Coal is abundantly available is very different from saying that it's the only abundantly available. Factually भी गलत है, ठीक है? Coal is the only abundantly available, you know, fuel in India. मतलब बाकी abundantly available नहीं है. Now, when you say A, because coal is abundantly available, it does not mention about other sources. And दूसरा, when you write C, it covers everything, including the abundant availability of coal. ठीक है? Understood? Samir, you understood? So C is something which includes option A also, right? So A अपने आप में it's not complete. ठीक है? Right. Let's look at the next question. Which of the following best characterizes, you know, spelling C is characterizes RAC होना चाहिए anyway, CHARAC should be RA, right? Held TPPs as a solution to the problem. So what is the problem, right? So what do you think the problem with TPP, right? The author suggests transition में held TPPs को use करने का, right? So this is the solution. So which of the following best summarizes the, you know, the way in which HELE TPPs will work? Find the best answer. Let's see. Choose the best answer. Okay, Nandita is saying the answer is A. Nandita say Prasanna answer is saying answer is B, which is the best answer. Acha, now eliminate करते, I'll help you. They will make little difference to the problem. Author suggests कर रहा है तो they will not make little difference, right? Now, what about C? They would provide temporary solution till nuclear power plants are developed. It looks like nuclear power plants are going to be the ultimate solution. Nowhere does the author say that nuclear power plants are going to be the ultimate solution. Nuclear power plants will supply, they will also supplement, but there is no indication that eventually in the future it is all going to be nuclear power plants. Future may even VRE can also substitute. As of now, VRE it is costly. If you reduce VRE, so that can also be substituted. So you have eliminated C and D. Which is better? So if you look at it, I have eliminated C and D because of mistakes. Better option A and B में से B है. A में एक mistake है. They would meet India's energy requirement. अच्छा, सबसे पहले, will HELE TPPs meet India's requirement or would they contribute? So it looks like they would meet India's requirement. It looks like they're going to supply the whole of it. Look very carefully. If you say they would help meet India's requirement, I would agree, right? But they would meet India's requirement looks like they are going to provide 100% of the solution. Nahi. Does it not tell you that there will be some, there will be some contribution by nuclear power plants, there will be some contribution by other TPPs which are not yet retired, right? So एक problem है. दूसरा, bypass India's contribution to climate change. ऐसा लग रहा है कि problem पूरा solve ही कर देगा. Will it solve the problem? Will it reduce the problem? Right. So it would not solve the problem but reduce the problem. So A has two major issues, because of which I have preferred B. Okay, everybody got the point, I hope. So that was the last question. Right. So with that, we come to the end of the session. Before I leave, let me quickly tell you about the schedule, the weekly schedule. This is the weekly schedule of the classes that you have on YouTube, right? And before we, many of you are asking me about where do you put your suggestions. You can write your suggestions here, right? Whatever queries, whatever suggestions, whatever queries you want to make, for these you have these number and the support, right? Right, Samir, ऑप्शन ए हमने एलिमिनेट कर दिया बिकॉज इट वाज एक्सट्रीम है एंड देयरफॉर गलत भी है. 100% तो इट इट विल सॉल्व द प्रॉब्लम नहीं, इट विल हेल्प सॉल्व द प्रॉब्लम. ठीक है, दैट इज व्हाट इज द केस. Right. So, Abhilash, yes, this is the mail ID. This is where you can post your queries and say, you can, make suggestions. Aniket, whatever you have to suggest, whatever queries you have, please, write in this mail, right? That will be easier. Okay. Now, let's see. Now, before we leave, there is this sale, Cricket 25. If you use this code, you will get a flat 25% discount for the classroom programs that you buy. And by the way, as of now, you have two options still open. There is this crash course for CAT 2021, right? And for 2022, the longer version, you have another course, right? So it depends on how prepared you are. And by the way, there's another course which focuses on other exams apart from CAT. So we can also focus on this. Okay, right? So all of you know that the classroom program is broadly divided into two categories: one targeting this year and the other one the longer version, right? And these are the teachers who take your classes, right? Aniket, these are lengthy papers, right? Lengthy hai, right? Because the whole editorial is lengthy. देखो कई बार if I take out a passage or a paragraph, तो meaning ही change हो जाता है. So that is why it's a little bit difficult. ठीक है? Right. So that is it for today. I will see you again tomorrow at the same time on the same channel, same platform. Till then, have a nice day. See you again.